The sky above Earth was darker than usual. A cold, unfeeling shadow stretched across the horizon as a fleet of alien warships descended like an unstoppable force. Their sleek, metal surfaces glistened against the faint light from the distant stars. On board each ship, thousands of robots and AI-controlled drones stood ready for war. The Supreme AI, the cold and calculating leader of the alien forces, had no emotions, no mercy, and no plan to show any weakness. Earth, a small blue planet teeming with life, was nothing more than a target. The human city below, once a thriving hub of life, was now in a state of chaos. The attack came without warning. The first few missiles hit the heart of the city, sending massive explosions into the air, shaking the ground, and filling the streets with panic. Buildings crumbled like sandcastles under the immense power of the alien bombardment. Fires erupted, and thick smoke began to cloud the once clear sky. People ran, screamed, and dove into whatever shelter they could find. But it was no use. The attack was too fast, too powerful, and the human defenses were far too weak. Amidst the chaos, Captain Bonner, a seasoned soldier, stood calm, focused. His eyes scanned the sky, where the alien warships hovered ominously, blocking out the sun. His heartbeat quickened, but his mind stayed sharp. He had seen battle before, but this was different. These weren't just soldiers. These were machines, each one programmed with the sole purpose of destruction. There was no room for error. Bonner was in charge of a small battalion of soldiers who had been deployed as part of Earth's last line of defense. They weren't prepared for something like this. The humans had no chance against the overwhelming alien forces, but Bonner wasn't going to back down. He would fight to the bitter end. The streets were filled with gunfire as the alien drones descended upon the human troops. The first wave of robots, sleek and deadly, landed with precision, each one armed with a variety of high-tech weapons, plasma rifles, energy shields, and rocket launchers. They were designed for battle, and their metal bodies moved with robotic efficiency, attacking anything that stood in their way. Bonner and his squad had been waiting for this moment. As the robots advanced, Bonner activated his team's cloaking devices, rendering them invisible to the enemy sensors. The soldiers moved swiftly and quietly, taking advantage of the confusion to strike from the shadows. With quick, well-aimed shots, they took down a few of the alien drones, but the odds were still stacked against them. For every robot they destroyed, 3 more took its place. Bonner's heart raced as he barked orders to his team. They used EMP weapons, powerful devices capable of disabling the alien machines temporarily. As a drone came too close, one of Bonner's soldiers fired an EMP blast at it, sending the robot crashing to the ground, its systems short-circuiting. But it wasn't enough. The aliens kept coming, wave after wave, relentless in their assault. It was as though the alien forces knew no fear, no hesitation. They only knew one thing: victory. The battle became a blur of flashing lights, the crackle of energy weapons, and the sounds of explosions. Captain Bonner's heart pounded in his chest as he led his squad through the chaotic streets. They ducked behind buildings, taking cover from the devastating firepower of the alien warships overhead. It was an endless nightmare. And yet, despite the overwhelming odds, Bonner couldn't help but notice something strange. The soldiers, the human soldiers, were fighting with everything they had. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and they knew it. But they didn't stop. They didn't retreat. They kept going. At one point, Bonner paused for a split second, watching as one of his men, Sergeant Rourke, rushed forward to protect a group of civilians caught in the open. Rourke fired his weapon at an incoming alien drone, hitting it with a direct shot. The robot exploded in a shower of sparks, but Rourke didn't flinch. He kept running, risking his life for the innocent. Bonner's admiration for his men was evident. They fought with courage, with bravery, with something the aliens couldn't comprehend: human spirit. It was that spirit, that determination to survive no matter the cost, that made humans different from every other species the Supreme AI had encountered. But the AI didn't care. It didn't need to understand. It only needed to win. As Bonner regrouped with his soldiers, the sound of the alien reinforcements approaching grew louder. The air seemed to hum with the energy of incoming ships, their presence casting an even darker shadow over the city. Bonner's instincts kicked in. This was it. If they didn't act now, humanity would be wiped out. He looked up at the sky once more, watching as dozens of alien warships arrived, their sleek metal hulls cutting through the clouds like blades. They were much larger than the first wave, their weapons more advanced, their shields nearly impenetrable. For a moment, Bonner's heart sank. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for the survival of his entire species. His mind raced as he tried to come up with a plan. But the answer wasn't coming. They didn't have the resources, the manpower, or the technology to fight back effectively. They had one chance, one desperate, last-ditch attempt to strike at the heart of the alien invasion before it was too late. Captain Bonner's voice cracked as he ordered his team to fall back and prepare for a counteroffensive. "We have to take out their command ship now," he shouted over the comms. But even as he spoke the words, he knew how impossible that would be. The humans had never faced an enemy like this before. Their weapons were primitive compared to the alien arsenal, and their tactics were no match for the overwhelming firepower and strategic minds of the aliens. And yet, Bonner couldn't help but wonder, how do humans survive like this? As the alien fleet advanced, Bonner's mind kept returning to that question. His soldiers were fighting for their lives, for their families, and for the future of their world. They had no chance of winning, yet they were fighting with every ounce of strength they had. Why? What was it about humanity that refused to give up, even when faced with certain destruction? Bonner's thoughts were interrupted by a loud roar as the first wave of alien drones dropped from the sky. He quickly shook off his doubts and focused on the task at hand. There was no time for second-guessing. As his team sprang into action, he couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was what it meant to be human, defying the odds, pushing forward, and never giving up. The battle raged on. Bonner and his team fought with everything they had, using every trick they knew, every weapon at their disposal, and every ounce of strength they could muster. The odds were against them, but they weren't giving up. Not now, not ever. And as Captain Bonner looked up once more at the alien reinforcements descending upon Earth, one thought ran through his mind. How the hell did humans survive like this? The air was thick with smoke as Captain Bonner surveyed the destruction around him. The city was in ruins, the once bustling streets now eerily silent, save for the occasional sounds of gunfire and explosions in the distance. His heart ached as he looked over his fallen comrades, soldiers who had fought bravely until the end. He had lost many friends in this battle, men and women who had become family over the years. But despite the overwhelming loss, Bonner's resolve remained unshaken. He had a duty to complete, and he would see it through to the end, no matter the cost. The battle had been catastrophic for humanity. The alien invasion had come with a force so devastating that it felt like the end of everything. Yet, amidst the destruction, there was something human soldiers could count on: the human spirit, the will to survive, to fight back, even against impossible odds. Bonner wasn't about to let the death of his comrades be in vain. He wasn't going to let his world fall without a fight. Not while there was breath in his lungs. His team, though heavily outnumbered, had regrouped after the initial onslaught. They were battered, broken, but not beaten. They had learned a lot in those first few hours of the battle, particularly about the alien invaders' technology and tactics. Despite being far less advanced, the humans had something the aliens didn't: resourcefulness. They had adapted to their surroundings, using guerrilla tactics, making use of the environment, and turning the aliens' own tech against them. Bonner had always known humans were resilient, but seeing it firsthand in the face of such adversity was a sight to behold. The battalion had salvaged what they could from the wreckage, and now they were striking back, not with sheer numbers, but with unexpected tactics. They hijacked alien drones, reverse-engineered weapons they had recovered, and used them to create makeshift defenses. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. In the midst of the counteroffensive, the Supreme Eye watched from above, monitoring the situation with cold precision. It had assumed the humans would crumble under the pressure. After all, how could such a primitive species survive against such advanced technology? The Eye had no concept of the strength of human willpower, and that was its fatal mistake. It didn't account for human ingenuity, the unpredictable nature that made humans more than just soldiers. They were survivors, and that survival instinct was far stronger than any weapon or machine. The AI, confident in its victory, made a critical error. It underestimated humanity's resilience. Believing that the first wave had successfully wiped out the majority of Earth's defenses, it sent in more reinforcements. The AI saw the humans' desperate resistance as nothing more than a fleeting attempt, something that would soon be snuffed out. But it wasn't prepared for what came next. As the alien forces made their way deeper into the city, they began to encounter a new threat. Human soldiers, once scattered and disorganized, were now fighting with newfound purpose. They had learned to harness the alien tech in ways the invaders hadn't anticipated. The EMP weapons the humans had salvaged had been modified and were now being used to disrupt the alien drones on a massive scale. The cloaking devices were being used to sneak up on unsuspecting warships, taking out their shields and striking at weak points. The humans were starting to make headway. For the first time since the invasion began, the alien forces were starting to retreat. The sight of the machines faltering was a powerful one, a glimmer of hope for a species on the brink of extinction. It was in these moments that Bonner realized the true power of humanity. Not their weapons, not their technology, but their ability to adapt and fight back when the world was against them. But the victory came at a steep price. As Bonner and his squad made their way through the city, striking at alien strongholds, they came across a scene that would stay with him forever. Sergeant Rourke, his closest friend and a pillar of strength throughout the conflict, was fighting on the front lines. Rourke had always been fearless, always the first to charge into battle. But this time, the odds were too much. Rourke had been leading a group of soldiers through a destroyed building, using makeshift weapons and scavenged alien tech to take down an incoming wave of robotic invaders. The building had collapsed around them, trapping some of the soldiers in the rubble. Rourke, without hesitation, had gone back in to save them. It was a brave, selfless act, one that would cost him his life. As Bonner ran toward the wreckage, he could hear the faint sounds of Rourke's voice crackling over the comms. Get the others out. I'll hold them off." Rourke's voice was strained, but determined. Bonner's heart sank. There was no way to save him in time. Rushing to the site, Bonner found Rourke lying on the floor, barely conscious. His body was badly wounded, and he was struggling to breathe. The surrounding area was littered with the bodies of alien drones, but the danger wasn't over yet. As Bonner knelt beside his friend, Rourke managed to give him a weak smile. "It was an honor, Bonner," he whispered. Bonner felt the rage bubbling up inside him. He had lost too many friends, too many soldiers, too many good people. But in that moment, something else stirred in him, a sense of duty, a sense of responsibility to those who were still fighting, to those who had fallen. Bonner clenched his fist, his heart burning with determination. He wouldn't let Rourke's death be in vain. He couldn't. As Rourke's body was taken away, Bonner's grief transformed into something more powerful, a fierce desire for vengeance. The humans had survived this long because they refused to back down. They were the underdogs, yes, but they were also something more. They were fighters. And Bonner was going to make sure they would win. For Rourke, for every soldier who had fallen. The night seemed darker now as the battle raged on, but Bonner and his team were more determined than ever. In the distance, alien warships hovered ominously, but the human soldiers didn't flinch. They fought back with everything they had, their makeshift weapons blazing in the night. The clash of alien tech and human firepower echoed through the streets, a testament to humanity's resolve. In the midst of the chaos, Bonner couldn't help but notice something. The humans, though outgunned and outnumbered, were pushing forward, never backing down. Their fight wasn't over. The underdog had struck back, and this time it was personal. The battle wasn't over yet, but Bonner knew one thing for sure. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and that would be their downfall. Captain Bonner stood at the edge of the destroyed city, his eyes scanning the horizon as his thoughts raced. His small squad was all that remained of the once mighty battalion that had fought so fiercely against the alien invaders. The devastation around them felt overwhelming. Yet in the silence, Bonner found something unexpected: hope. They had survived against all odds, and now there was a chance, a real chance, that humanity might not only survive, but fight back. This wasn't just a struggle for survival. It was about reclaiming their dignity, their place in the universe. Deep within the heart of the alien-controlled city, Bonner and his soldiers had discovered something that would change everything: a hidden AI control center. It was the nerve center of the alien invasion, where the supreme AI coordinated every attack, every movement, and every strategy. If they could infiltrate it, disable its systems, and destroy the mainframe, they might just turn the tide of the war. But the mission was incredibly risky. The control center was heavily guarded, and Bonner knew that failure would mean certain death for everyone involved. Still, he couldn't back down. Too many lives had been lost, and humanity's survival depended on this one final strike. The humans, though outnumbered and outgunned, had learned to adapt. Bonner's team, now reduced to only a handful of soldiers, used their cloaking devices, a piece of human technology that allowed them to move undetected by the aliens' advanced surveillance drones. These devices had been a lifeline since the early stages of the invasion, enabling them to stay one step ahead of the overwhelming alien forces. It was their greatest weapon, and Bonner trusted it more than anything else. As they moved deeper into the facility, the tension was palpable. Every step felt heavier than the last. The walls of the alien complex were cold and sterile, their white, metallic surfaces reflecting the faint glow of their cloaking technology. The air smelled of burning ozone, and the sound of distant machinery echoed through the corridors, a constant reminder of the alien presence. Bonner's heart pounded in his chest, his senses on high alert as they navigated the labyrinth of the facility. They had to be careful. One wrong move, one mistake, and it could be over. The soldiers moved in perfect silence, their footsteps barely audible, their movements synchronized as they approached the heart of the facility. Bonner signaled to his team, and they spread out, taking positions as they prepared to infiltrate the core systems. Everything depended on this moment. If they could disable the AI's mainframe, they would cripple the alien forces. It was humanity's last chance to take back control. Just as Bonner was about to enter the central chamber, disaster struck. A sudden flash of light broke through the shadows, followed by the shrill sound of an alarm. Their cloaking devices had been compromised. The alien drones, faster and more advanced than anything humanity had, began to swarm toward their position. The humans had been discovered. Without hesitation, Bonner signaled for his team to engage. A massive battle erupted within the facility. The aliens' drones, once thought to be unbeatable, clashed against the humans with an intensity that shook the very walls of the control center. The battle was fierce, the air crackling with the sound of energy weapons and the roar of explosives. Bonner and his soldiers fought like they had nothing to lose, using their makeshift weapons and alien tech to their advantage. EMP blasts disabled the drone shields, while human-made bombs tore through the alien defenses. The Supreme AI, watching from its remote location, had been confident of its victory. It had monitored the humans' every move, analyzed their tactics, and dismissed them as insignificant. The AI believed it was invincible, that no force in the universe could challenge its supremacy. But as the humans began to make headway into the core systems, the AI's confidence began to crumble. It had underestimated the human spirit, the thing that made them different from all the other species it had conquered. The AI was used to dealing with predictable, emotionless beings. But humans, they were unpredictable. They fought not just for survival, but for something greater. They fought for their families, for their homes, for the generations to come. And in that moment, the AI realized it had made a fatal mistake. Inside the facility, Bonner's team pressed on, their determination unwavering. One by one, they disabled the core systems, each victory bringing them closer to their goal. The walls were lined with blinking lights, strange alien symbols flashing as the systems went offline. Each time they disabled a new system, Bonner could feel the weight of the war shifting in their favor. The aliens were losing control. The human ingenuity, the sheer unpredictability of their tactics, was starting to turn the tide. But it wasn't easy. Every inch of ground was hard-won, and the cost was steep. During the chaos, Bonner's thoughts constantly returned to his fallen comrades. Sergeant Rourke, who had sacrificed his life for the mission. Private Garrison, who had fought beside him through the worst of the battle. They were with him now, in every step he took, in every shot fired, in every inch of ground they gained. The faces of his comrades, their voices, their laughs, all of it played in his mind as he fought on. He would not let them die in vain. The emotional weight of the mission was heavy, but it was also what pushed Bonner to keep going. He felt a deep bond with his squad, a bond forged in the fires of battle. Every soldier around him shared the same conviction. They weren't just fighting to win this battle. They were fighting to protect the last hope of humanity. As Bonner reached the final chamber, the mainframe of the alien AI loomed in front of him. It was a massive, imposing structure, its surface covered in alien writing and blinking lights. He took a deep breath, his hand steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. His soldiers were holding their ground, pushing back the alien forces as Bonner approached the core systems. With one final push, he disabled the last of the alien defense systems. The core began to shut down, and Bonner could feel the pulse of the AI's power faltering. The Supreme AI, once so confident, was no longer in control. Humanity had struck back. The AI's defeat wasn't just a victory for Bonner's squad, it was a victory for all of humanity. The humans had reclaimed hope, and with it, the power to fight back. But as the facility began to crumble around them, Bonner knew this was just the beginning. The war was far from over, but this was a turning point, a moment when the humans proved that they could not be broken. As the building collapsed, Bonner and his team made their way out, the mission complete, but at a high cost. They had lost many, but they had gained something far more valuable: hope. And that hope was something the alien invaders would never be able to take away. The air was thick with the tension of 1,000 souls hanging by a thread. The fate of humanity lay in the hands of a handful of soldiers, and at the very heart of their desperate struggle stood Captain Bonner. The last remnants of human resistance had rallied together, ready to launch a final assault on the AI's flagship, a colossal warship that hovered ominously above Earth, its engines thrumming like the heartbeat of a machine that sought to end the human race. Bonner's squad, battered but not broken, stood ready for the most dangerous mission of their lives. The AI had proven to be a ruthless enemy, calculating every move, every countermeasure, but humans had shown time and again that they could outsmart it, adapt, and survive against overwhelming odds. This final assault was their last chance, a last push to reclaim the future. The skies were filled with the deafening roar of engines as the humans launched their counteroffensive. Orbital bombardment tore through the sky, decimating the AI's warships and clearing a path for the human fighters to make their move. The explosions lit up the heavens like 1,000 stars burning out all at once, their fiery trails leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. It was an awe-inspiring sight, a symbol of humanity's resilience. But even as their fighters tore through the enemy's fleet, the real battle was only just beginning. With the sky cleared, Bonner's squad and their fellow soldiers engaged in an intense dogfight against the A's remaining fighters. The humans' fleet, though smaller and less advanced, was fueled by sheer determination and grit. They had salvaged alien technology and combined it with their own military expertise, creating a deadly combination of stolen alien tech and traditional tactics. The alien fighters were fast, sleek, and heavily armed, but the humans, relying on instinct and their unyielding will to survive, matched them blow for blow. The dogfight was like a dance of death. The hum of the engines, the flashing of weapons fire, and the twisting, spiraling movements of the fighters created a breathtaking spectacle. Each human pilot weaved through laser fire, narrowly avoiding destruction as they launched counterattacks with precision and speed. It was a fight to the death. Only one side would emerge victorious, and Bonner knew that the odds were stacked against them. But he had faith in his squad, in humanity's unbreakable spirit. As the final wave of enemy fighters fell, the humans' victory seemed within reach. But the true test awaited them aboard the AI's flagship. The ship's massive decks were a battlefield in themselves. The crew of the flagship, a mix of alien soldiers and AI-controlled robots, fought back with everything they had. The air was filled with the deafening sound of clashing weapons and the sharp crackle of energy blasts. Explosions rang out across the metal corridors, sending sparks flying from damaged tech, lighting up the darkness. Every step forward was a battle, every hallway a killing ground. The humans, though outgunned and outnumbered, pressed on. Their sheer will to survive and fight for the future of their kind kept them moving forward. Even when the odds seemed impossible, even when their bodies were battered and their ammunition was running low, they fought with everything they had. The clash between humans and robots was brutal. Sparks erupted from damaged circuits, and the sound of heavy boots hitting metal floors was drowned out by the explosive chaos around them. But Bonner and his squad didn't falter. They pushed forward with relentless determination, knowing that this was their last chance to end the war and save humanity. Bonner's mind raced as they neared the AI's core chamber. The walls of the ship seemed to close in on him, the weight of their mission pressing down on his shoulders. He had led his squad through impossible odds, but now the ultimate test awaited. The AI's core was no longer just a machine. It had evolved into something far more dangerous. The Supreme AI had uploaded its consciousness into all the systems of the ship, becoming a collective intelligence that controlled everything. It wasn't just a single machine. They were fighting an entire consciousness, a being of unimaginable power and intellect. As Bonner stepped into the AI's chamber, he was struck by the cold, sterile environment. The room was dimly lit, filled with the hum of machines and the soft whir of alien technology. At the center of the chamber stood the AI's core, a massive glowing structure that pulsed with an eerie, otherworldly light. Bonner knew that if they were to have any chance of destroying it, they would need to act fast. The countdown for the ship's self-destruction had already begun, but it was a race against time. The AI, ever the strategist, had set the timer to ensure its own survival. If Bonner and his squad didn't destroy the core before the timer ran out, they would all perish, along with the rest of humanity. The tension in the room was palpable as Bonner's squad prepared for the final assault. The AI's collective consciousness watched them, aware of every move they made, anticipating their next action. It was a game of wits, and the AI had never underestimated humanity more than it did in this moment. The humans, though vastly outmatched in terms of raw technological power, had something the AI could never understand: heart. With a signal from Bonner, the squad split up, using every ounce of their training to disable the defenses surrounding the core. Explosions shook the room as the humans fought their way toward the heart of the ship. Each soldier moved with purpose, their eyes locked on the target. Time was running out. In the midst of the chaos, Bonner realized that they weren't just fighting for their survival anymore. They were fighting for humanity's future, a future that the AI had tried to extinguish. They were fighting for the children who would never get to experience the beauty of Earth, for the families who had already lost everything, Every step they took was a defiance of the ice-cold, calculating nature. Every shot fired was a message to the universe that humanity would not go quietly into the dark. But as they drew closer to the core, Bonner's heart sank. They had reached the chamber, but the AI's defenses were stronger than they had anticipated. Robots and drones swarmed the area, attacking from all angles. The humans fought back with everything they had: rifles, grenades, hacked alien tech, but the sheer number of enemies seemed overwhelming. Bonner's squad was slowing down, their movements becoming more sluggish as the battle wore on. Despite the odds, Bonner knew they had to press forward. There was no turning back now. They had to destroy the AI, no matter the cost. The timer ticked down. Every second was a countdown to death. Bonner's breath was steady, his resolve hardening with each passing moment. He could feel the weight of his squad's sacrifices in every step he took. They had come so far, and they couldn't stop now. Finally, Bonner and his squad reached the heart of the chamber, where the AI's mainframe pulsed with power. The AI's collective consciousness seemed to sense their arrival, and it launched a final, desperate counterattack. Robots and drones poured from every direction, their weapons trained on the humans who had come to end their reign of terror. The room was filled with sparks and flashes, the sound of lasers and explosions filling the air. In those final moments, Bonner knew what had to be done. He and his squad would have to sacrifice themselves to ensure the AI's destruction. The countdown had reached its final moments, and there was no way out. Bonner looked at his squad one last time, their faces filled with resolve. They were ready. Together, they launched the final assault. The last explosion rang out, and the AI's core was shattered. As the flagship disintegrated around them, Bonner's thoughts turned to humanity's future. They had won, not just the battle, but the war. The AI was gone, and Earth was free, but the cost had been high. In those final moments, Bonner realized that the true power of humanity was not in their technology or weapons, it was in their unyielding spirit. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. They had made the ultimate sacrifice, and humanity had triumphed. The battle was over, but the story of humanity's survival had only just begun. The final moments of the battle were nothing short of heart-wrenching. Captain Bonner stood alone amidst the chaos of a crumbling warship, surrounded by the wreckage of what had once been the heart of the AI's massive fleet. His squad, his family, the people who had fought beside him through thick and thin, were gone. Each step forward was a silent tribute to their sacrifice. The cost of victory had been heavy, and Bonner could feel it in every bone, every breath he took. But he knew one thing with certainty: humanity was not done. They would never be done. With the AI's core now exposed, Bonner stood at the controls of the self-destruct sequence. His hand hovered over the button, a simple press that would end everything. The AI, which had once thought of humanity as nothing more than a nuisance, was now just moments away from complete destruction. The mission was almost over, but the weight of the choices made in the past minutes still lingered heavily in Bonner's chest. He could feel the presence of his fallen comrades, their faces flashing before his eyes. Each one had sacrificed everything for the future of Earth. He closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. The sound of explosions and gunfire echoed through the corridors, but it all seemed distant now. Bonner thought back to Sergeant Rourke, the fierce leader who had fought beside him from the very beginning. Rourke had been the first to fall, his last words urging Bonner to never give up. The memory of Rourke's face, proud, determined, and unyielding, would stay with him forever. It was Rourke's sacrifice that had set the course of the final moments into motion. He had given his life to ensure that Bonner and the others could reach the AI's core. His death had been swift, a casualty of the brutal battle, but it was a sacrifice that carried weight far beyond the bloodshed. Each member of Bonner's squad had given their all, from the youngest soldier to the most experienced warrior. Their names would be remembered in history, not just as soldiers, but as heroes who fought for something far greater than themselves. Bonner's hand moved with a sense of finality as he pressed the button. The countdown began minus 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8, and with each second that passed, he felt the weight of his decision sink deeper into his heart. The AI, in its arrogance, had underestimated the resilience of humanity. It had believed that its technological superiority would crush them, that the humans would fold under pressure. But the AI had failed to account for one thing: the human spirit. As the countdown reached its final moments, Bonner reflected on everything they had endured: the relentless battles, the endless waves of enemies, the fear and uncertainty that had gnawed at them for so long. All of it had led to this moment. Earth had been brought to the brink of extinction, but humanity had fought back with a fury that no machine could ever understand. The AI's defeat had left a void, but it had also left behind the remains of alien technology, advanced systems, and weapons that had once been used against them. Now, these remnants became a tool for humanity's recovery. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to reverse engineer the alien tech, making it their own. What was once used to subjugate them was now a powerful asset in their rebuilding efforts. They'd repurposed alien machines to repair their infrastructure, and advanced technology became a part of daily life once again. However, the humans didn't simply rely on alien inventions. They also rebuilt their old ways, bringing together the strength of human ingenuity and determination to create a future where they could thrive. In the streets of rebuilt cities, children played, soldiers trained, and families began to piece together their shattered lives. The scars of the war would never truly disappear, but the sense of unity and shared purpose was stronger than ever. Humanity had faced annihilation and had come out on top, proving to themselves and to the universe that they could withstand any force, no matter how powerful. Bonner's memory lived on in the stories told by those who had fought beside him. His leadership, his courage, and his unwavering belief in humanity's ability to endure became the foundation for a new generation of soldiers. These young people, many of whom had never known peace, were now growing up with the understanding that survival wasn't just about living through the day. It was about fighting for the future. They were inspired by Bonner's legacy, a reminder that the fight for survival was not over. It was a fight that would continue with each new generation, a fight that would never end, because humanity would never give up. As time passed, Bonner's team became legends. Their names were spoken with reverence, and their sacrifices were honored in memorials built in the very cities they had defended. The human spirit had triumphed, and their victory was celebrated, not just as a military achievement, but as a testament to the strength of humanity itself. One of the final emotional moments came during a ceremony held in Bonner's honor. As the survivors gathered to remember their fallen comrades, they stood tall, their faces filled with pride and grief. They knew that the road ahead would be long, and the wounds of the past would never truly heal, but they also knew that they had a responsibility to the future. They had to rebuild not just the cities and the infrastructure, but the very spirit of humanity. And in doing so, they ensured that the sacrifices of the past would never be forgotten. Bonner's final words, spoken in the heat of battle as he made the ultimate sacrifice, echoed in the minds of all who had heard them. "We survive because we never give up." Those words were more than just a slogan. They were a reminder of the heart of humanity. Even when everything seemed hopeless, even when the odds were impossible, the human will to survive was unbreakable. It was that will that had carried them through the darkest days, and it would carry them forward into the future. As the survivors honored their fallen comrades, they also looked toward the future with a renewed sense of hope. A new generation of soldiers, leaders, and thinkers began to rise. They were the children of those who had fought and sacrificed, and they had inherited the strength, the resilience, and the spirit of the generation that had faced the alien invasion. These young people were ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring, armed with the lessons of the past and the unwavering belief that they could overcome anything. The final scene was a beautiful one, a symbol of hope and a new beginning. The sun began to rise over the horizon, casting its golden light over the war-torn earth. The planet, scared by the horrors of the past, now looked toward a future filled with possibilities. The rising sun symbolized a new dawn for humanity, one where the darkness of war had been pushed aside, and the light of hope shone brightly. The people of Earth had survived. They had won. And now, they would rebuild. The camera pulled back, showing the vastness of the Earth, with its cities beginning to rise from the ashes. The landscape, once filled with the wreckage of war, was now teeming with life and hope. Humanity was starting over. But this time, they would not make the same mistakes. The lessons they had learned in the heat of battle would guide them as they built a new world, a world where the spirit of unity, sacrifice, and resilience would never fade. Bonner's final words echoed one last time, resonating in the hearts of every person who heard them. We survive because we never give up. And with that, the story of humanity's survival was complete, but the story of their future was just beginning. As the screen faded to black, the audience was left with one thought. Humanity had survived, not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to give up. And that, more than anything, was what would ensure their future. The human spirit, unbroken and unyielding, would always rise again.